Power on.
Accessing historical database. Year 2020. The tech giants become aware of the greatest threat to their corporatist domination. An obscure science and tech podcast becomes a major factor in a peaceful open source revolt against the military Silicon Valley industrial complex. The podcast, Sovryn Tech. Its host, Dr. Brian Sovryn. The tech giants tried to stop Sovryn Tech. They can't.
Woo! Did I hear that somebody wanted some Sovryn Tech on this fine day? Well, guess what? You're going to get it, baby. In fact, you're not just going to get me, but you're going to get none other than the inimitable, remarkable, brilliant, beautiful. I mean, how many positive adjectives do you think there are in the English language?
Probably too many to count.
Yeah, I don't know. No, you see, someone once told me that there is only it's in the double digits.
Well, there has to be at least the magic ratio of 5 positive for every 1 negative.
Really? I figured that was the other way around. Well, anyway, this is why I have Ellen Sovryn on the show. And
well, I'm asking for it, and I want it.
You
Give me
want
that
it.
Sovryn Tech.
Woo, baby. Well, you're going to get it. And, of course, you've got the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, ready to go along with this amazing woman. And, well, we've got a lot to talk about. In fact, we've got some things to talk about. One thing we've planned on talking about for a while, but another, you shared a video with me that was basically an expose. And you know how much it takes to actually even get me to watch a YouTube video, but I watched this and admittedly, it made me want to stop watching YouTube all over again. But
yeah, it does have that effect.
Yeah, we'll save that story for a little bit later. But why don't we go ahead? This is again a tradition that happens every time you happen to be on, Ellen. And that is, you and I, we talk about, what we happen to be reading or, listening to / reading, say, on Audible. Of course, Audible is not a sponsor yet, but, would I take them? I mean, I'm already on. I was one of the podcasts. Sovryn Tech was one of the podcasts. I'm actually a human being. I'm not a podcast, but the Sovryn Tech was one of the podcasts that was invited to be available on Amazon Music for launch day. I'm still hoping that podcasts end up on Audible. Let me ask you that. Because you listen to podcasts, Ellen. I mean, or at the very least, you listen to Sovryn Tech.
Yes, yeah, I do.
Do you see an advantage to having podcasts in the Audible app?
I think it would make sense because it's where people go to listen to intellectual content or at least, like some sort of audio content that isn't music.
Right.
Personally, I feel like all of the services that I have offer podcasts. Like even Pandora offers podcasts now.
Yeah.
And to me, it seems kind of redundant because there's so many platforms out there that offer podcasts. But at the same time, if you're a podcaster, I think it makes a lot of sense to put your podcast out in as many branches as you can.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would make it extra convenient for the listeners if podcasts were on Audible.
What do you use? Are you willing to share what you use for a podcast app right now?
Yeah, right now I use Podbean Player.
Oh, yeah, right. But yeah.
I used to use Podcast Addict, and that was great too.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I think it'd be awfully convenient if it were there. I already talked about all that. I don't need to go down that road again. Would it become like your primary podcast player?
I guess it would eliminate the need for a separate podcast player.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm basically thinking and seeing is that, and I don't know, how well exactly Spotify is doing as far as podcast metrics go. But I could just imagine that I don't know. I feel like it would really open up a lot of things, but
it would open up some free space on my phone.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. I mean, because we spend so much time, you and I, in the Audible app alone.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, like myself, I don't know if I'd even really carry around a smartphone much if it didn't have Audible on it, right? I mean,
true. I mean, that I bring it with me on certain trips just for the audio that I have on it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Boy, we could go into a whole, I mean, folks, we got plenty of tech and science to talk about throughout this show, and we might even have a fun review if we're able to get to it towards the end. So don't worry. The hottest tech show in the world has got you covered. But you mentioned a term, a word to me the other day, and we had a epic conversation on the way back from the gym.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
It begins with an N.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
Nomophobia. And we don't need to get lost on this right now. It's a conversation we got to have.
How it came up in the first place?
Well, I mean, I just want to mention what it is. So,
Sure.
I mean, do you want to describe it?
Okay, so nomophobia is it's supposed to be kind of funny. It's like a shortening of no mobile connection phobia.
Right. The fear of not having a mobile connection.
Exactly. And this is kind of a new phenomena that's only been around. I mean, it's only been studied for the last few years, really, since people have had cell phones pretty much their entire lives. At least the younger generation has.
Right.
And I don't think people really recognize how dependent they are on cellular networks until they're completely disconnected.
Yeah.
There's no Wi-Fi, there's no 3G, there's nothing.
Right. Right.
And you can end up feeling alone and frightened because of that.
Yeah. Humans are such remarkably adaptive creatures. They adapt to, I hate this phrase, but I'll use it. They adapt to new normals very quickly.
Yeah, and actually the scariest thing maybe is that the human brain can learn to be afraid of anything.
Wow. Tell me more.
So if you, this is really interesting because it kind of explores a few different phenomena in human brains. But if you, for example, hear stories about something from someone else that indicates that there's danger, then you'll be afraid of that thing that they're talking about, even if you've never personally experienced it. Or if it's maybe a mundane object that you're being faced with, but there's some painful association with it, you'll be afraid of that thing.
Right.
Or you can learn to be afraid of things like that. Or even, and this goes deeper into, like, there's also evolutionary fears that we have kind of gained over the years, like spiders and snakes. But not everyone is afraid of those things. Most of the time, people learn to be afraid of those things because they see other people react in fear.
So, this gets into the old Pontius Pilate question: what is truth?
Oh.
And I don't think most people consciously realize that very often. In fact, I did a user podcast about this. I think it was called Light of Reason was the name of it. You can find it in the Sovryn Tech feed. But I don't think a lot of people realize that our notion of what's true, of truth, very much relies on each other. Like, we are a social species. Our notions of truth are an aspect of being that social species. So what you're saying, like, I mean, I hear you and I agree. And that's why so quickly, a new concept, can become a truth, to everybody, or like a new fear can become, well, if they're afraid of it, I should be afraid of it. I mean, that's part of how we gauge what is real and not, and what is truth. So, and there's a name for that, but regardless, that's very interesting. But this nomophobia, I mean, just to have a name for it, and yeah, we could.
No, this is a real phenomenon.
I know, and I'm just like, I'm pausing because, like, it's a conversation we got to have at some point, and we'll have it, because I agree with you. Sometimes it is incredibly disturbing, especially at the gym.
Well, that's why it came up in the first place. We were leaving the gym and I was saying, like, I'm just growing increasingly disenchanted with the gym because every time I'm there, it's like a dystopia. Everybody's just absorbed in their phone.
Right.
And you'd think people would be there to exercise and it's kind of a grounding experience that gets you engaged in the real world. But apparently not for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I rarely ever see anybody at the gym taking pictures of themselves. And this is before, COVID-19 or anything. Like I rarely ever saw anybody there really taking a picture of themselves. And I'm glad for that because that's fucking annoying for one.
Yeah.
But I hear you. And
well, you rarely see people with a partner there either.
Oh, I know. We're the odd couple, not because we're like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, but because we're
interact,
odd and that we're a couple.
We talk.
Yeah.
We clean off machines for each other.
Yeah.
We do workouts together.
I mean, even when we would wear headphones or something there, we would still communicate.
Yeah, whenever we pass each other,
right.
We, say hi, give each other a hug or something.
Yeah, or kiss, or I grab your ass, or but yeah, actually, this is something interesting too. An acquaintance of mine, Michael Hearn, was like, I remember him saying, he doesn't listen to music, or he doesn't like to listen to music when he works out. And I thought that was absolutely insane. We've got plenty of stuff to get into, folks. We're going to get into it. This is just one of those opening tangents that happens when you have a brilliant person like Ellen on. And I mean, I've got a scientist right in front of me. You think I'm not going to talk about it? All right. So, and I thought that's nuts. Like, why would you not listen to music at the gym? Now, I mean, to say nothing of the fact that like the music that gets played over the speakers at the gym is, I mean, just mind-numbingly horrible. And it all sounds the same. Yeah. It's pop nonsense. Not that I necessarily have a problem with pop, it's horrible. But there's an argument to be made. And there is some research done on it. There's research on the advantages of listening to music while you work out as well. But there's an argument to be made for not listening to music while you work out, because in today's world, when you're always connected, to the internet or to whatever the hell's going on, it gives you a chance to just connect, to you on the inside, what's happening inside, and to really pay attention to the workout as well. And I read that, and boy, did it speak to me. I mean, admittedly, I've always used like my workout time to, maybe listen to a new album and test it out,
Yeah.
And you've indulged me in that a lot.
Oh, I've done the same. I mean, I'll listen to some things that I know I love.
Right.
But I've definitely discovered a lot on Plex that I never listened to before that I thought was pretty great.
Yeah.
Just while working out.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's an advantage there. I certainly don't like to go on social media while I'm working out. Fuck that. Like, no interest in that whatsoever.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That pulls you out of your situation so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can kind of stop it there, but bottom line being nomophobia. This is a thing. And I'm with you. It's disturbing to just see people with tech neck, at the gym where these are, you expect. I mean, we're talking, some of these people are very much in shape. Some of them are not, and whatever, everybody's at their different levels. I'm not knocking anybody, but you'd think that there were people who were very aware of their body and very aware of what's going on inside, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there was something else that you brought up that I think maybe relates to this as well. That people really have a fear of being stuck with their own thoughts and having to confront them. And that's what you do when you're faced with silence or even momentary boredom.
Right.
Like in between sets.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of new albums, of course, Amaranth, it's one of my favorite bands. I think it's one of your top bands, Ellen. I don't think that's unfair.
I think they've made a couple good albums. Yeah.
Sure. So they came out with a new album recently, and they had a song on there called Viral. I know you get annoyed by that, but
I don't know. I don't like it when musicians talk about like cell phones or texting or, new slang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. No, I understand that. You want stuff that's timeless, that's kind of immortal, you know?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, anyway, in the song Viral, there's a great lyric in it and it goes like this. In the glow of the screen you hide, oh shit, what is it? To ignore the pain inside, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And something along those lines. And I thought, I was like, yeah, that's dynamite, you know? I mean, that's really
Dynamite.
it. Well, there's an Amaranth song for you. That's a great one. Off of Massive Addictive.
Excuse my terrible singing.
No, you
sorry, that was
is
just,
gorgeous.
I thought you were playing off of that song title.
that was not an intentional pun, but it's a great one. So anyway, but it's a solid point, you know, that I think that people like really, they just get lost in these. Like I look on Twitter sometimes and people they're living their entire life on Twitter. They don't live outside of Twitter. They think everything that happens on Twitter is reality. And well, you know, frankly, actually, boy, that'd be a great segue into our main story. But we're going to save that. So.
Okay, so we'll hit pause right there and we'll go into our book club and then we'll pick it up again after we finish. Yeah,
we'll come back to what is real online because holy hell.
Yeah, we've got a great story
we
about
have
that.
An amazing story about that. Yeah. Terrifying as in many ways as well. So, okay, book club. Do you want me to start it off or do you want to start it off?
I'll start it off.
All right. So what is this brilliant engineer, this brilliant scientist before me? What are you?
I'm fanning myself.
It's the truth. So what are you reading right now?
So earlier today, I was trying to finish the Sherlock Holmes series. I think I talked about this last time I was on. There's like 6 parts to that Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, it's like a
Sherlock
60-hour
Holmes
collection.
audiobook.
Yeah.
It's huge. So I haven't finished that. But in the meantime, I picked up listening to another book that actually my previous supervisor recommended. Surprisingly, he was a man in the engineering field, but he recommended this book to me.
Yeah.
It's called Women Don't Ask by Linda Babcock and Sarah Lashiver. And I fucking love it.
Wow.
I am crazy about this book so far, and I'm only 4.5 hours in.
Give me a takeaway. I mean, you've talked to me about this book because it has been very impactful for you, and I think it's great. But like, give me a takeaway. Yeah,
I've had so many aha moments while listening to this book, and so far, what it's been about is the opening chapter was basically about the title, Women Don't Ask. Women don't ask for help when they need it. Women don't ask for, a fair amount of money that they should be compensated for their work. They don't ask for raises or they don't ask for benefits or, they are not encouraged from a young age to speak up for themselves and to demand what they deserve as boys are taught to. And I think it's kind of misleading that we're told pretty much now that like the scales have been balanced and men and women should, they are making the same amount of money. They have equal opportunities, but it's simply not true. And, I was one of these people that thought that it was mostly fair at this point, but there still exists a wage gap that can pretty much be explained by the fact that women don't ask for, they don't generally negotiate for higher salaries when they're hired. Generally, they just feel grateful to have a job. Or maybe they think that if they work hard enough and show that they deserve a raise, that eventually their boss will just give it to them. Like women have this expectation that the world is fair, and so they shouldn't have to ask. And that's often not the case. And the reason that the wage gap still exists, not just because they don't negotiate when they get hired, but also over the years, they don't ask for raises or they don't ask to get promotions. And often men do, and they're far more aggressive in asking.
So you probably just pissed off a whole lot of people saying wage gap. But but I don't care. No. And I know you don't. Yeah. So if I'm getting what you're saying, now technology has very much leveled the playing field for all kinds of demographics. Okay?
Sure, certainly.
Yeah. But you still have the cultural forces that,
Yes.
you know, that basically instill, say, in women, you know, don't rock the boat. Don't, you know,
Right.
don't make too much trouble. Don't,
Women are always taught to be, you know, like soft and feminine and to be gentle and quiet.
right.
Whereas men are often told to like go strike out on their own and be really independent, and that they, you know, like from a young age, they're given jobs that like they would get paid for, you know, like mowing the lawn or taking out the trash. Whereas women often are told to like do the dishes and cook food, and they're not compensated for that. It's just an obligation that they have.
Yeah.
But that's still work that they're doing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So let me put this on you. Okay. Conan the Destroyer, not the Barbarian. Conan the Destroyer, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. Right. The movie. We watched this recently. Grace Jones, the black gal playing that, you know, tremendous warrior character.
Oh yeah. She was amazing.
She's amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Right. And what does she do? Like the princess is asking her, you know, how do you get a man like Conan?
I reach out and take him.
Grab him like this. You grab him and take him. And she's like, grab him and take him. I every time I've ever, you know, like a gal's ever talked about this movie or watched it, like that scene always stands out. And you know why I think that stands out? Because no woman's told, every guy in the world is told, yeah, grab him and take him, you know, like
yeah,
that.
Go out and get it.
Yeah, go out and get it. Go get him, Johnny. You know, I mean, like the whole thing, like that's not unheard of at all. But for a woman, when is a woman ever told, it's like, oh, if you want a guy, grab him, you know, take him. It's yours. I mean, I'm saying that granted, that's kind of extreme. But my point is that I don't know a whole lot of mothers or fathers that give pep talks to their daughters that, you know, like that are like, I don't know, Wolverines, you know, or Hoosiers, right. Go get them. You know what I mean? Whatever. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, this is really the inherent inequality that still exists in our society. And it's so subtle that most people don't notice it. But it really has a lot to do with teaching children gender roles from a young age. Like if a girl is told that women aren't as good at science and math, she's probably not going to try as hard because she could possibly fail in those. But it's really horrible because over the years, women get this sense of low self-worth and low self-esteem when compared to other men. And even if they have that, even just being around men who believe that women couldn't be as worthwhile or have as much value as men, that will inherently bring out some sort of insecurity in them. So even just knowing that other people believe that, even if you don't believe it yourself, can put you on edge. But like women have this really low sense of self-entitlement, and they don't ask for what they deserve because that's seen as a masculine action.
Yeah. So, you know, again, there's no need to legislate. Oh, we must pay XYZ or XX higher. You just got to, you know, teach people, you know, gals, you know, everybody, like, you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth and, you know, go ahead and ask for it. And yeah, I think it's a massive cultural issue.
Yeah. And it's especially hurtful to me because I feel like if anybody had tried to teach me that I was a person of value, that I could have the things that I thought I deserved, I could have avoided abusive relationships. I could have avoided lots of jobs where I felt like I was doing really hard work and not getting paid a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like I could have started chasing my dreams a lot earlier than I did.
Yeah.
But a lot of my life I had to spend learning the hard way that you can have what you want and you can expect more for yourself and you can have what you think you deserve.
And you're allowed to be happy, you know,
yeah.
and that's something, I mean, that's writ large across culture is that, I mean, no one, you know, no matter what your chromosomes, you are not told you're allowed to be happy. But it doubles down, I think, on women. Absolutely.
Well, men are taught that they build the world, they control the world, they
right.
control the money. that's something like it's just taken for granted by men that they will have this ability to do whatever they want. But for women, I mean, even if they are told that now, like there's all of these programs where like women in STEM, that's great. But that doesn't fix the situation at home or at the workplace or even amongst their classmates. I still think that there's this pervasive, and maybe very subtle and beneath the level of consciousness behavior that, kind of like encourages people to look at women as less capable when that's not true.
Absolutely. You're far more brilliant than I. So, but now Sovryn Tech, I mean, has what metrics I have, it basically runs 50-50, as far as, and I mean, that's not getting into, some other possibilities, but basically, there's a significant female, audience and a significant male audience as well. Would you recommend, actually, let me ask you, would you recommend guys read this?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think from the opposite perspective, you could learn a lot. And that's part of why I was so surprised that my supervisor recommended it to me. Like a man listened to this,
right?
A man who is in a position of power, being my supervisor. Oh,
he's very high up at that company.
Yeah, and I had this experience while I was working there that was really wonderful. He was like entrusting me with all of these assignments that were very independent and, just treating me very much like a peer and an equal.
Right. Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. Whereas other engineers in the same facility, I got very different attitudes from. I felt like I was, ignored or sneered sometimes, or like plenty of people wouldn't look me in the eye. They wouldn't address me.
Right.
Another thing too, that this book has stated that I just now realize is so true. Like women are evaluated on their performance more so in the workplace, whereas men are evaluated on their potential. And so men can basically do no wrong as far as like, if they have a great potential, if they're just starting out and really ambitious, they are generally given more opportunities in the workplace. Whereas like, from my experience, only my supervisor was giving me these opportunities. Nobody else was like reaching out to me and offering projects or anything. Right. So yeah, I think it's a great book to listen to, whether you're a man or a woman. Women definitely listen to it because it's going to empower the fuck out of you. But men listen to it because then maybe, you can see how you can help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I could almost make the argument. There are so many books, and I've had a lot of people in years previous. I've had people email into the show and say like, Brian, are there any like great sex guides out there, for men and everything? And I'm like, no, don't read the sex guides for men. Read books like Come As You Are. Read books that are all about the female anatomy, not yours. And because trust me, if you please the lady, you are going to have a much better time. So, okay.
That's really true.
Yeah. So, and I think this, I mean, I'm, don't want to directly compare it, but basically it's kind of in the same vein where, learn more about something that's not you. And I think that you can engage the world in a much more, enlightened way. So, and maybe understand where more people are coming from. What was the title of the book again?
Women Don't Ask.
All right. So Women Don't Ask. We need that and a lot more Grace Jones in the world. And, and I think we'll all be better off.
And I think we need more men like you.
Oh.
I feel like you are the wind beneath my wings. You give me a sense of entitlement.
I will send you some Bitcoin later. No, I'm kidding. No.
The usual fee. Yeah,
that is very kind of you. Well, anyway. So, is there another book quick you wanna mention?
Those are the only ones.
That's it. All right. So Sherlock Holmes and one more time.
Women Don't Ask.
Women Don't Ask.
By Linda Babcock.
Linda Babcock. So, all right. I'll get into mine fairly quickly. One of them is Humankind by, hold on, Rutger Bregman. I keep wanting to say Bergman, but Rutger Bregman. He has another book too, Utopia for Realists, I believe it's called. Anyway, the book Humankind is all about basically the notion that humans are, by and large, actually nice. That survival of the friendliest, not necessarily survival of the fittest and so on. And I want to do a deeper dive on the book. I feel like it's a book I need to listen to again. But when you get to, I'll say this, when you get to like chapter 7 and chapter 8, he starts going after the Stanford prison experiment. He starts going after that. He goes after Milgram. And he just debunks the fuck out of all this research. And he clearly shows that, mainstream psychology is well aware that these, the supposed research has been debunked, but they keep running with it anyway, and I guess because it's a very positive narrative. And that's sort of a major point actually through both of his books. In that one of his prevailing theories is that, if people all believed, this is more of that cultural stuff like you were talking about. If people believed that the person next door was, inherently kind, or at the very least not inherently evil, that more or less you wouldn't need people with power over you. Like you wouldn't need, say, perhaps governments, or there's a lot of different institutions that you just probably wouldn't feel like you need. And so he brings some very interesting evidence to the table from the late 19th century, early 20th century, and even into modern times that point at governments were only ever really terrified of people that talked about genuine peace, like real peace and kindness. And that's always really been the threat, anyway, we could get into a big conversation around that, but it's a fascinating book. If anything, even if you don't agree with him on that humans are somehow inherently benign, even if you don't agree with that, the chapters specifically tearing apart the Stanford prison experiment, tearing apart, Milgram, and even ripping apart Jared Diamond's work. And he just rips it apart. It's phenomenal. That's worth the whole read alone. So that I definitely recommend the book Humankind. Again, you could say that he's oversimplifying at points, but man, when he starts shredding those experiments and that research, that's the kind of stuff I get excited. I love it when somebody like really, really takes stuff apart like that.
Yeah, I was surprised when you told me about it the other day. You mentioned that there were like meetings and that people were being influenced and told what to do in these experiments, which no longer makes it objective.
Oh yeah. Like people are like, like with the Stanley prison experiment, people say all the time, oh, well, they were given badges and uniforms and suddenly they just turned evil. Oh, no. Some of them resigned. Others, they had to get, like the guy who was the psychologist who was doing, the head of the experiment. He had to tell them, it's like, hey, you're not being an asshole enough. Like, you need to go in there, put on sunglasses. You need to be like, they were being guided. They didn't show any natural predilections at all. There's lots of other things that, anyway, you got to listen to it. Sorry, did you have more?
No, I just was saying that when you told me that, I was really surprised because, if that's the case, then these experiments aren't objective. They're not proving anything.
Right.
Why are they still being taught in psychology courses as, these landmark research experiments?
Yeah, there's times where, this as well as anybody could, I'm sure, that a lot of times you'll take the data that fits in well with your theory.
Right,
and
but what's the purpose of the theory, that people turn evil once they're given authority?
I think, well, not that they necessarily turn evil, or, well, yes, it is that they turn evil, but I think a lot of it really just comes down to that, well, people are evil if you let them be. I mean, that's like the circular logic of government, right? Mm-hmm. Because, we need government because people are bad because, and, but people are bad and that there's government. So like bad people must be in government, but people are bad. So we need government. And it's that constant circular logic, but most people don't want to go with the circle, or they think that, well, it's a necessary evil. Well, anyway, I think this book gives a pretty good thrashing to that notion. I mean, and it's not like he spends a ton of time saying that somehow everybody's a fucking Mozart and brilliant or something like that, because if that was his argument, I wouldn't buy the book for a second. Like if you're just going to say, no, people are inherently, intelligent and they're whatever. No, there are dummies out there. Okay. I mean, there are really, but just because they may not be the most intelligent people on the planet does not mean that they somehow would lack empathy. Or he has some interesting comments about empathy in the book too, but I'm not going to go down that road. That doesn't mean that they're somehow evil,
well, there certainly are people out there that are just evil.
Oh,
and
yes.
There's certainly people out there that are only kind to one another because there's a threat of violence if they do something wrong.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, but then a lot of that stuff is kind of like you were just talking about with your book as well. How much of this is culturally taught,
right.
And that's a major problem. But and this is amazing how this kind of works out, because we didn't plan the initial conversation we had around nomophobia. People can adapt to new normals, or people can adapt to new ways very quickly. And so, maybe there's some, I hate this word, maybe there's some hope, in that.
Yeah, maybe eliminating the cycle of violence.
Mm-hmm.
It would die out pretty quickly.
Yeah. And maybe people would get used to it pretty quickly. But, well, anyway. Only time will tell if any of that happens, but those are bigger conversations for another time. So the other book, I'll just mention it quickly. This is actually recommended to me by just a phenomenal Sovereign Tech listener. They recommended it in the Telegram group. Of course, if you want to join the Telegram group, the links are all over the place in the show notes. You can't miss it. Just have Telegram installed and you're there. And it's the Immortality Key by Brian C. Muraresku. I don't think I pronounced his last name right. And I'm one that I have a history of very funny last names. So bad on me. This is a very interesting book. I'll put it that way. What I've read so far is fascinating. It basically has to do, it's kind of like John Allegro's work. And he has yet to mention John Allegro, and I'm a little pissed off about that. It's very much because I've brought up John Allegro's work on this show in the past, which is his book from the 60s. And he did like kind of a rehash in the 70s, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, which is the idea that Christianity comes out of a mushroom cult, like psilocybin, and all that stuff. I am going to do a deep dive on this book. I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to review this thing, because there's some things that I've heard I already have problems with. But I'm checking it out. It's interesting. It's not a necessarily new argument to me, but certainly there are some newer notions, like the idea that, there's the historical concept that civilization started because of bread. That like bread was the first biological technology, and like, we loved bread so much that we finally sat down and stopped being nomads. This book makes a very interesting historical case that it was actually beer, not bread, but beer is the thing that more or less brought on civilization.
They're both wheat products.
Yeah. Very shocking claim. Of course, there's more to it than just, the fact that civilization started with Budweiser. I mean, I can't think of a more depressing notion, but I mean, it seems like civilization still runs on Budweiser these days, frankly.
Well, I think it was different back then. I mean, if you look at native peoples who drink fermented drinks, mm-hmm. they're ceremonial. They only drink them very special times of the year.
Yeah. And again, this gets into, it's arguing that wasn't just beer. Like there was something very special in that brew.
Oh, sure. I mean, It's probably not just yeast. There might be fungi in there too.
Right. So anyway, I will, as I go through this book more, as when I finish it, I am definitely going to do a review, probably be during a Sovereign Tech Climax, because I think it's a book that's worthy of discussion, because it's touching on a subject ultimately that I'm very interested in, which is Prisca Theologia. But I am going to leave that there. So, we done with book club? Feeling good?
Yeah. Feeling
Okay.
pretty good about that.
Why don't we go ahead and take a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Lily Jean. Yeah. I can't believe that. Anyway, but really, no, we're going to talk about Lily Jean, but you got to hear this to believe it. We'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Hey, is Sovryn Tech not enough for you? Well, let me tell you about something you'll never get enough of. No, I mean it. We're talking about a radio show and podcast that goes all night long, 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night, 365 days a year, and has been going since the early aughts, baby. I am talking about none other than Free Talk Live. It's the show you control. That's right. It's an open phones call-in show that is ready for you. And if you're worried that your voice isn't going to get heard, don't be. We are talking about the only libertarian radio show stateside. And not only that, it's also the number 26 talk show in the United States. Start listening now and go ahead and hit that massive back catalog at freetalklive.com. The Golden Stallion guarantees a good time, and you might even find some episodes with me on them when you do. That's freetalklive.com, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Let's get back to the show.
The main story.
All right, it is time for our main story, and this is something I forget how the conversation came up between you and I, Ellen. But you said you have to see this. This is unbelievable. And I'll just cut to the chase on it. This person has like faked their entire life.
Yeah, I think I watched it earlier that day, and I was just so disturbed by the reality of this that I just had to tell you about it. It was one of those things that you just can't keep to yourself. You have to like offload it onto someone else.
Yeah. You kind of sit the person down. It's like, look, I need you to listen to me for 5 minutes. It's not going to make any sense, but please just listen. And, and that's about how it went. But, and you told me about this gal, Lily Jean, who is a YouTube quote unquote, and I'm putting that in quotes, star. Okay. An influencer, which influencers.
That's a term used very loosely.
Yeah, it means nothing and is nothing. But despite what the influencers would tell you. So as soon as you told me about it, I said, well, share me on the video. Like what is this? I gotta know. And the video is about, 15 minutes long, something like that. So if you set it to 2x, you're done in a few minutes and you'll have gotten the story. And it's linked in the show notes. You can check it out if you want. It's fairly well done, fairly well put together. What do you got?
Wow. I'm just surprised you linked that one.
Oh, there's a ton more. I mean, because a lot of people are calling this gal out.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Good luck to them.
Yeah, right. So Lily Jean, not Billie Jean, great song. No, Lily Jean, she is, did they say how old she was?
She's in her 20s.
20s?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how old she is exactly.
So she is claiming to be one of these, I guess makeup
artist.
Makeup artists, YouTubers are, it's like, gamers on YouTube, like it's a popular thing. Yeah.
Wow.
What?
So, it's just funny hearing you talk about this because clearly you don't know anything about the makeup artist industry on YouTube.
None.
So, there's a whole community of makeup artists
right
on YouTube, and it's very popular amongst women, I guess, and some men, not many, but there are definitely male makeup artists on there too.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a community, and it is also partially an industry. I mean, famous people such as Jeffree Star, they do their own makeup tutorials. They even have sponsored palettes that they'll get made.
Right.
But a lot of these people that are the most professional of the makeup artists, they'll have sponsors. They'll specifically name the brushes or the products that they're using. But there are plenty of other people who are makeup artists who are just, really good at art, but they're not famous yet, but
Right.
they've got like 100,000 followers on YouTube or something.
Sure.
And they're good at what they do. But anyway, it's always like exciting to find a new makeup artist or like a look that's inspired by something that you love.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll say this much. While I don't know anything about that community, I am somewhat familiar, with, well, I mean, I'm familiar more with things from like the Hollywood end, and maybe the just adjacent of Hollywood end of that.
Right.
And I'm well aware of the absolute artistry that goes into that. I mean, if you're a great makeup artist, you can basically make any face look like anything.
Yes.
I mean, like really, like you can make anybody look like anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's remarkable to see those results. Before YouTube was a thing, I mean, I've even looked at books like that. I remember in Barnes and Noble where you could see, like these makeup artists and what they could do with people. And it was just mind blowing, to see that. It is absolute art and an absolute talent, skill. This is a honed craft that you have to get into. Now, Lily Jean, her craft may have not been so honed.
Yeah, so the YouTube video that I sent you that is in the show notes.
Yes.
It will show some of her makeup artistry. And the guy narrating the video says he thought it was somewhat basic. And I would agree with that. I mean, she's doing makeup and she's filming herself doing it, but it's not artistic in the sense that like it doesn't have the skill of the steady hand of an artist behind it.
Yeah, she does a shit job. And so it's not very impressive. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I am no auteur or no connoisseur, I should say, of makeup artistry, as I made clear. But even I can look at that and go, you're not that good at that. And that's all right. Not that somebody has to be good at it, right? Do whatever you want to do. But the oddity here is that, so maybe that makeup artistry isn't that good, but she has almost a million followers on Instagram. And I mean, we're talking like 970K, like just about, a million followers on Instagram. And there are people in this makeup artistry community, right, that look at her and say, wait a minute, like, she's not that good at this. How does she have way more followers than I? Not just like a few more followers, or not just in their league, but like superstar level followers. Like how is that happening? In her feeds, you see that, or it appears, we should be clear on that, she has been on the cover of Teen Vogue. She was at the Met Gala, walking like the red carpet there.
Yeah, like Lady Gaga.
Yeah, right. All kinds of. Anyway, it looks like she's just very, someone who's in with the celebrities, very, very big deal. But then you kind of look at everything she's producing and it's like, wait, something doesn't add up here.
Yeah, and you watch her videos on YouTube and it doesn't seem like she has a real personality. It's like she's acting it all out.
Right.
And you see footage of like her in her home with her mother. They don't seem like elevated people. Yeah. And we're not elevated people either. So. Well, I would argue with that.
Anyway, I mean, we're certainly enlightened and well, anyway.
I'm not saying like monetarily elevated or anything, just people with a sense of refinement and sense of self-respect. And that really shows in other aspects of life too, like what you surround yourself with. Yeah. And it appears that like the paparazzi's following her, like she shares videos and photos that apparently was her being followed by the paparazzi. She supposedly has her own makeup line. All these things. She, by the metrics, not by, taking a look at her actual like work, her videos, but by the metrics,
I mean, she's as big as, I don't know, pick your celebrity. Like she seems like she's a very, very big deal.
Yeah, I know makeup artists who are like living in Paris, who actually work for big names who are incredibly talented, and they have maybe just slightly more followers than she does.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that as some sleuthing, some research has been done into, what's the mystique around this Lily Jean. It's all bullshit.
Supposedly.
Apparently it's all bullshit. For one, I mean, some of the things, it's easy to see. Like, I mean, 1 million followers, that's not an inexpensive proposition to do.
To purchase?
Yeah. I mean, this is not something I've ever engaged in. I mean, the only I have like 4,000 followers, like on Twitter. There was a point where I guess I was a little more popular a few years ago, and maybe I had closer to 10 or something like that. But, I say incendiary shit and people run for the hills. And the way I see it is like, I guess, I did that right. So you can buy that many followers. It's just, that's not cheap. Okay.
Yeah. And in the video, the way that the narrator was talking about this, he actually he somehow found statistics of her followers over a period of time.
Yes.
And it was like up close to 1 million. And then for 1 month, it dropped dramatically.
Right.
And then went right back up the next month.
Yeah. Like it would go down from, like 150K, or it'd be like 150K to like 6K in like some of the YouTube views and everything. Like it's a very clear pattern that somebody bought a ton of views or followers or whatever else.
Right.
And the engagement numbers aren't even like 1% of the audience. Not that's that odd. And I want to be abundantly clear here. Real celebrities, quote unquote, whatever that means, but real celebrities, say even The Rock, go down the list of them, they buy followers and all this shit too. I mean, this is how the game works. And I don't like it. I mean, I don't do it, but I don't like it. But you can't really get mad at her for buying followers when everybody buys followers.
Sure. But I get the idea. Like attracts like, if you're somebody that lots of people follow, then maybe when people see that, they're going to be impressed into following you as well. But that only really works if you have something to offer.
True. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So now, the follower thing, not a big deal. If that were the only, part of this, I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. Everybody does that. Like, sure. Again, even Jennifer Aniston does it. Who cares?
It's not a big deal.
No, it's not. Maybe David Attenborough didn't, but whatever.
All right. It's part of the fake it till you make it new generation.
Or even if you've made it, it's part of that because making it is frankly a fake. But regardless of that, where it gets really bad is that, so the makeup line that she apparently has, it's not a makeup line. There's like a company called, what is it?
Bite?
What is it? Bite?
Cosmetics? Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Bite Beauty or whatever it's called.
Yeah, she went and made some custom lipstick.
Yeah, it's like a Build-A-Bear for makeup.
Right.
And she treated it like it was some kind of affiliation, like that somehow they had some kind of partnership deal going on. That's not true. And apparently they went after her and said, you have to stop talking like that. And you can't make that claim.
Right.
And so that seems to be absolute bullshit. Like there is the evidence for that. Then the Teen Vogue magazine. No, like that's Photoshopped.
Totally fake. They weren't even printing magazines at that time.
Exactly. Right. So we know that it's a fake. Yeah, I mean, and another place where I just want to be fair, most magazine covers, and I mean 100%, are Photoshopped.
Sure.
So it's not like she necessarily did something that the industry itself doesn't do. So I want to be fair on that. But where things were not fair is her Photoshopping herself into that Met Gala op.
Yeah, she cropped herself. She put herself over another celebrity.
Right. And which was it, Lady Gaga?
I don't remember who it was specifically.
Anyway.
But the way that this was found out was there was a weird distortion in the bushes behind her.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the person doing the video is able to match that picture with another picture and see like, oh, she just photoshopped herself over this other person.
Right. Yeah. So, bottom line with a lot of this now, I mean, there's other parts to it too. Like she probably created sock accounts, or like fake accounts that she would interact with.
Yeah,
but
that were really bad.
Yeah. And, some of them were like terribly racist.
Yeah, very racist or sexist.
Mm-hmm. And it was very strange because like she created entire backstories for all of these accounts. And there's like 15 to 30 accounts that she would regularly interact with, but they weren't real people. And eventually Instagram took a lot of those accounts down, I guess. My understanding of it is, then there's the claim that her mother was actually the one she was the one pretending to be the paparazzi.
Right. Taking all the photos of her.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this gal is, homeschooled. So, and that I don't know that necessarily means anything. But it's
except that she stays home and doesn't interact with people a lot.
Well, admittedly, it helped with the facade. And that's not a knock on, I think homeschooling's great. I have no problem with that. I think unschooling's great. I have no problem with any of that.
Sure.
Okay. But because, she didn't really have a peer group that she interacted with in a school every day, for most of her life, that helped her fake this whole thing, because otherwise there just would have been kids at school that could have easily said, no, she didn't do that. No, she was in history class. What are you talking about? Or whatever. If she's in her 20s, I don't know what that, I don't recall how long she's been doing this for. Amazingly, even with all this happening, with the brands dropping their affiliate links with her or dropping their affiliation or affiliate contracts with her and all this other stuff going on, she's still going. She had a video come out a day ago. Go ahead.
I think the most disturbing part of this story is when other real talented makeup artists they started asking about Lily Jean and like what's going on with this person, who is she, and what's her story. People started investigating into her, and Lily Jean and her mother left some really nasty, threatening comments.
Very threatening.
Yeah. And they were supposedly they were reporting people's accounts as spam accounts and getting them permanently shut down. People who had built up a following over years, their accounts just gone.
Yeah.
And that might have been their livelihood.
Yeah. And then there were some, like there's a guy, Danger Zone or something, like there were some other YouTubers who were apparently coming in to defend Lily Jean, and they were doxing some of the other somewhat prominent members of the makeup community.
Yeah, it was so creepy. They were just like looking up all of their personal information on a live stream.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear, and apparently a whole hell of a lot of other people do. It's pretty clear that she's faking this whole thing. This whole life that she leads, it's just all a ruse. Like it's all, it's photoshopped. And again, to be fair, most of what you think is like real online and that like, celebrities are doing and everything. A lot of that's fake too, right? I mean, even the Photoshop covers, Oprah has 3 hands, I mean, like this is, this shit happens. All right. So
yeah, Michelle Obama has a penis.
Right. Whoa. So
that'd be easy enough to Photoshop.
Yeah. So, it's not like she isn't doing anything that people that go for this kind of celebritydom or even have it don't do anyway. They do. And I understand that, but it is I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get into it to drive home something I've been saying for many years on this show. The internet it's just, this isn't going to shock anybody when I phrase it this way, but the internet is full of lies. All right.
And it's so easy to make up a lie.
Yes.
To fake literally every part of your life that you put online.
Yes. Yeah. And, this is something, I can speak for with the podcast, if you want to call it the podcast community, even though that's such a broad thing now, there's no one podcast community. But, there's circles I used to run in, and I've done my own little exposés on a lot of this stuff, like with, like libertarians or, ANCAPs, various anarchists and all this different stuff. Again, circles I used to run in. And these guys and gals would make themselves like, oh, wow, yeah, my Backwards album was huge and all this stuff. And it was all, they were all behind the scenes, like saying, hey, everybody come and like my post here. Everybody come and like my post here. Everybody bump my shit up on Steam. Everybody come, these people are all faking shit. They're making it seem like they're a big deal when they're not. Now, when you fake the big deal, it lures in honest people, right? Because at a quick blush and you're not thinking too hard, and I don't blame people for going on YouTube and not thinking too hard. I wouldn't, but it looks legit and you're like, oh, wow, this person must have really something, something special to say. I should check this out or whatever. But no, they're full of shit. And it just speaks to the very real problem around, this internet famous, this internet famousness. I think it's all crap, and most people's followers are bought. I'm not going to say it's all. There's some people who I think have, like Steve Gibson has over 20,000 followers on Twitter. I imagine that's legit. Because why would Steve Gibson buy? He doesn't need to do that crap. There's just no need for that.
Yeah, he's already had his career.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's people where it's not necessarily true, but so much of what you think somehow matters, and all of this, there's just it's fake. And this isn't even getting into the issue of where you're only, like, say on Instagram, right? People have talked about this for years now. You're only getting the best moments of somebody's life most of the time.
Yeah, well, that's like cherry picking and filtering the good moments. It's not really like, faking a whole life story. But yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, or there's even, there have been stories about, people who have 1 million followers on YouTube. They're waitresses. Like they have to work as a waitress, and like they'd be actually serving at a banquet. And somebody would recognize them from YouTube. It's like, wait, why are you working as, it's like, well, I don't make any money off of fucking YouTube. But then you've got everybody walking around thinking, oh, they have 1 million followers on, on YouTube. They must be something special. They must be fucking amazing. And I mean, for me, I want to hear from you, Ellen, what is the woes of this tale. But really for me, it's just, these are just people, and most of them are just faking it. Do not give these people any kind of adulation or credit. Don't think that they're any kind of a big deal. They are not worthy of your attention and time, unless they really are saying something objectively interesting for you, or they really are doing something objectively enriching. And but otherwise, I just can't imagine it. But it seems like, I don't know. I mean, I work in PR, and so I'm hypersensitive to this stuff, and it gets very frustrating because you see how the sausage is made with so much of this stuff. And when you get a story like this, I just think it's terrifying because people fell for it, and this gal, and like, what is going on in this gal's head to where she wants to Photoshop herself into all these moments and like treat it like it really happened? I mean, boy,
what's going on with her mother that she's helping her out with all of this? Helping her to live a fake life. That's
very, very weird. And that's a whole other subject too, is like mommy managers of YouTubers, like parents that are basically schlepping out their kids, to be YouTube stars. And I mean, not that that's new either. There's plenty of parents that did that with their children in Hollywood, and who the fuck knows what was done to those children. It's terrible.
Children going into beauty pageants and stuff like that.
It's all the same crap. But I mean, when you watch this, you got to watch this video, because the level to which she was able to fake all this should make you just skeptical of every single thing you see online. And that's what I'd love for people to walk away from, after talking about this, because it's mind blowing how much she was able to fake and how many people believed it. But what do you got, Ellen?
Yeah, that's true. There's always, multiple sides to every story.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that the creator puts out isn't the entire truth.
Yeah.
And you have to know that with anything that you see online.
Sure.
There's always other perspectives, and they're not the ones that are being broadcast. I understand why Lily Jean would want to be famous and why she would go through this fake it till you make it sort of process. Like, there are people in this world that want to be actors, that want to be superstars, and they feel like they were born for it. Sure. They just don't have any easy inroad. And the internet makes it so much easier to kind of build that for yourself. I mean, it doesn't always work, as is, the case here, but I think it can enable you, if you're already the kind of person that lives in a fantasy, like you can actually make that more of a reality through your internet presence. But that's part of why I find it so disturbing, because the internet is enabling that.
Yeah. I mean, the only reality is reality. Okay. And folks, before anybody thinks anything, I'm saying anything different. No, there is an objective reality, but the reality is not on the screen. Like it's just not on there's no reality on that screen. Okay. Hell, even in reality, like, boy, the things I could say.
I just feel like when you watch any YouTube video, when you meet any star online, take what benefits you from them, but don't buy into the persona that they're selling you. I mean, don't do that with anyone.
Yeah. Everyone
is just human. There's no one that deserves like extra special adulation because they got 1 million views on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. But there is this perception that like what's going online is representative somehow of the real world. And that's just not true. That's not remotely true. Like the angst, the anger on Twitter, that's going back and forth and slinging hash and this way and that in the political realm and everything. Most of that crap is just on Twitter. The average person does not think that way. And to speak of like Rutger Bregman's work, the average person, we go to the grocery store. Nobody's screaming at each other over Biden versus Trump or anything like that. People are just going shopping. You know what I mean? In the real world, people just go more or less go along. Now, granted, we had those idiots driving by in their Trump rally.
That was so annoying.
Right. But those are people that are out of touch with reality.
But also those people were in vehicles.
Right.
Which is a protection from the outside world. People on the internet, they're protected from reality. They don't have to be in person communicating with people. They're only using verbal communication. They're not getting any of the nonverbal, right. which makes up the vast majority of communication. Yeah. So if you were in the same room with someone who was, for example, like ready to scream about Trump, they probably would communicate with you in a little bit more reasonable fashion if you were face to face as opposed to online.
Yeah.
Because they would have to come to terms with how you were responding.
Yeah. And, the amount of time, the time sink that had to be involved with creating this persona, this fake life that Lily Jean engaged in. That's the other part that's kind of mind-boggling to me, is that, and I see this, like I'm on Twitter. I don't grasp. And some of these people, they are genuinely real people. I don't think they're faking anything necessarily online. But I have no concept of how they can tweet as much as they do during the day. Like I have no idea. Is somebody actually paying them to tweet and just like drop a ton of hot takes or whatever? If so, what's the secret Facebook group that I need to join to where I could get that pay? Because boy, all right, I can write. I think that you should look at perhaps how, I don't even like to use the word prolific, but I'll use it. How prolific someone is on these platforms. And I dare say the more prolific they are, the more disturbed and the further away you should be from them. The more disturbed you should be by them and the further away you should be from them, because nobody should have that kind of time if they're actually living a fucking life.
You can't hold down a job if you're texting every 20 minute.
No, you can't. I am baffled at the amount of tweets that go out per day by some of these people. And I don't fathom. And they get tons of hearts and everything. And it just, I can't understand it. I don't know what's going on there. What do you got? You got?
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like it really is a red flag if somebody has a huge online presence, because that means they're not present in the real world.
Right.
And they're not connected to what's going on in front of them. It's all, in the ether.
Yeah. I mean, and even when you put that much stuff out there, can you even remember what you did the day previous? I mean, do you even know what you're supposedly putting out there in the world that you think is so goddamn important when you do so much? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And I feel like it really damages a person too when they turn to the internet, when they become reliant on it as a means of communication, because then they, it's like you're communicating with just words, like maybe there are people behind those words, but you never have to actually interact with those people.
Yeah. And, I get, and I want to kind of phase into another conversation here, but it's relevant. It's related to this. I get why a lot of people, and I've mentioned this commercial many times. It's a classic from the 90s for America Online. This ran on TV nonstop. I remember seeing it over and over and over again. And you had a guy on it. They're saying why they go on America Online. And this one, really, and look, folks, I'm the king of the nerds. You understand? Literally. So I'm not insulting my own people, but I'm just saying in a very nerdy way. He just said, I like going online because I can be someone I'm not. And
wow.
Oh, straight faced. This young guy says this in the commercial. Yeah. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube somewhere, of all ironies.
Well, nobody ever pointed out to him the inherent contradiction in what he said, that he cannot actually be something he's not. Maybe he just has certain inhibitions released or removed when he goes online.
Well, eventually it catches up with you, kind of like it did with Lily Jean. But my point here is that I get it why people like to do that, because they get to go online and they get to do exactly what Lily Jean did. They get to pretend to be somebody that they're not. They get to pretend to be a rock star on Facebook, right? When actually they're at home, probably don't even have their pants on, and they're sitting at their laptop, if they even have one, or really they have their smartphone out, maybe a beer in the other hand, right? Cradle of civilization, and, downing that while they're typing out, whatever. Okay.
Oh, civilization could not have been built if people were alcoholics.
So
not at that level.
Yeah. So, and I get where, and this is something that I want to have this conversation with you, and you've wanted to have it, because the other aspect is that now you have this thing called filters. We've had them for a little while. Okay. They didn't really start with Instagram, but certainly Instagram made them popular. But you have filters where, you can kind of fuzz out what would be conventionally called, and understand, folks, I'm being empathetic here and saying they're conventionally called out as imperfections, say, on your face. You can look younger, you can look more beautiful conventionally, folks, please don't misunderstand me. It's makeup on steroids, what you can do with some of the software, some of these apps, right? With a lot of these filters. And now, so the Google camera app, this is interesting. I actually had this lined up for a different episode of Sovereign Tech for during the foreplay, but the Google camera app used to have automatic filtering where it would automatically beautify or whatever. Google's turning that off, where that's not default now. You could still turn it on, but their argument for why they're turning it off is because they consider it psychologically damaging.
Yeah.
Right. And so, even people who don't have 1 million followers on Instagram, after a fashion, are faking it online. And most of us, I think, can see it, when somebody's using something to kind of fuzz their face, to smooth things out.
Well, you never know. Some of these filters are pretty smart.
Some of them are pretty good. You're right. Just like there's makeup that, only accents and doesn't take over, say, a look.
Well, please don't compare this to makeup.
Don't compare it to makeup.
No, filters are something completely different.
Go ahead and explain it. That's fine. But go ahead and run it by me.
Wow. Okay.
No, I'm with you. Just go ahead and run it by me.
So filters are something that you put on photos that you want to put online. These pictures you expect to last forever, right? They're going to be exposed to many people into perpetuity.
Right.
And with filters, you can really fake a lot. I mean, you can. There are filters that not only change tone and color and like warmth of a photo, but they can add like a little sparkle to your face or put blush on your cheeks and make your eyes look wider and like your lips more pink and your skin is so smooth and porcelain. And there are tons of apps that do this.
Yes.
It's very easy to do. But a filter on a photo, I think, is faking reality, whereas I do not think that makeup fits into that category.
So I agree. I think, but would you say there are times where makeup, and I'm not saying you're doing it because you're going to a costume ball. Okay. Of course that there's a point to that. Do you think that there are cases where makeup is used to fool reality?
Halloween.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. You go to a party, sure, of course. I'm saying where like you are putting on makeup to cover up something that I don't know, some reality of yourself that you consider to be that is conventionally considered an imperfection. And again, folks, I'm saying conventionally, people can look however they want and they're going to be beautiful. You know. Do
you think men grow beards to hide imperfections on their face?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. There are a lot, and not all, but there are a lot of men who grow beards to hide the fact that they don't have a chin.
But do they also grow beards because they just like the way their face looks with facial hair?
Absolutely, yes.
So this is the interesting thing about not just makeups, but any sort of mask that someone puts on their face, whether it be glasses or a beard or hats, whatever. They're used to conceal, but they're also used to express. They can be both at the same time.
Yes.
And for women who wear makeup, it can be used to conceal certain flaws, but it can also be used to exaggerate certain things that they really like about their face. So I don't think that makeup is necessarily faking reality. It can, like maybe for people who are on television, they wear an obscene amount of makeup. I remember when I was in theater, we would put on like disgusting layers of thick, oily makeup just to make our faces and our facial features like visible from very far away.
Yeah, there's a point to it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think makeup can be used on a daily basis, not only to like conceal things about your face you might not like so much, just like men do with facial hair, but it can also be used to accentuate and even express the way that you feel internally, what you want to express artistically. You know, there's a reason that artists exist around this idea.
Yes.
Because it is an art, and it's something that people do as a creative exercise, not just as a way to hide things about themselves.
Right.
And maybe that's what people who have kind of, like, there are certainly women out there, I'm not going to deny, that only put on makeup because they feel like a cultural pressure to look perfect and to hide certain things about themselves.
Yep.
But I think for the vast majority of women, it's an empowering experience to have nice makeup and to put on makeup in a way that makes them feel like they can put their best foot forward and express the beauty that they feel within.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Like 100%. I'm totally with you. So what bothers you about Instagram filters or filters in general, photo filters in general?
Well, I guess it's the idea of like capturing a moment and then feeling like you have to make it better than it already is. Like if you don't want to like look that good in real life, but you want to look that good in a photo, like why not, you know, like why not have that persona in real life? I feel like there's a disconnect between reality and online presence. And like for people who are using Instagram filters on every single one of their photos, it's I just feel like they're not putting in the effort in real life. They're not actually taking the responsibility to like make that a reality.
Mm-hmm.
They want to look that way online, but like when people meet them in person, that's not how they're going to express themselves. That's not how they're going to appear. I mean, you can make the argument that like all appearances are deception.
Oh, somebody's getting deeply philosophical.
And like, you know, that's more true online than I think it is in person.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you can just pretend to be whatever you want online.
Right.
But I also think that like the widespread use of filters online helps to perpetuate this false standard of perfection in beauty, which doesn't exist. There is no such thing as perfect. You can chase it forever, but you'll never.
It's unknowable, right?
It. Exactly.
Somebody might have said that recently. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're hitting at it. And that is a major concern of mine as well, is that there is this somehow, like, there is always a better you that you can constantly strive to be that exists within reality. Right. And I think that's a very, dare I say, even noble, very worthwhile thing to engage in, you know, like improving yourself and getting yourself closer to what, you know, your mind's eye sees of yourself. I think those are wonderful, wonderful things. Perfection is a conventional concept. Like I just said, perfection is unknowable, and perfection is actually within all of the imperfection. That's a paradoxical statement, but it's true. It's not a new one for Sovryn Tech either, but it's absolutely true. You know, perfection comes out of the, you know, the differences and the diversity that, I mean, we have even on our own bodies, you know, that allows for a perfection of movement or a, you know, but again, that issue of that there's somehow this standard, you know, and I get it. You can argue that beauty comes ultimately from symmetry, you know, like there's an evolutionary argument for that. And I understand that, but we're so far, I feel like humanity, or at least it can choose to be now, and much of it is so far beyond any of those notions. Like we don't need anything perpetuating it.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to even argue that, because this world standards of beauty from country to country are so different.
Vastly different, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw that documentary Samsara. I think that's what it was called. No speech throughout. It's just showing film from multiple different cultures. Mm-hmm. Of like what they think the most beautiful women are. Mm-hmm. And it varies so much from country to country. It's really incredible. So I think it's hard to say that there's any universal standard of beauty.
Yeah. I'll put it this way. What I think is universally sexy is confidence. You know, and I mean, certainly we could bring in, you know, a little clip of Jack Palance, you know, saying confidence is very sexy. Don't you think? You know, that whole thing.
Yes.
Confidence is universally sexy. Why? Because we have plenty of research now. In fact, some of this is talked about in Humankind, the book I mentioned earlier, even. Plenty of evidence now that people don't necessarily respond to what's true. Like you get a lot of people asking, how does Trump happen? How do all these things happen? People don't respond to truth. They respond to certainty. Certainty.
That's something he's got.
Yeah. Certainty and truth are not the same thing.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, but that speaks to that certainty, just how powerful certainty is to the human psyche. And that's why confidence is sexy universally, because it's I mean, we could say it's evolutionary, but regardless, it's here. It's how it is now, no matter where it came from. Certainty is something that we respond to stronger than anything else in human interaction. And that's what's kind of funny about this, is that I think a lot of people will use not just Instagram filters. They'll use metrics on YouTube, on Instagram. They'll use, whatever, sock accounts. They'll use all these things to build up a faux sense of confidence, right? A false sense of being, they'll do these things because it makes them feel powerful or makes them feel confident. But then ironically, because it's all fake, and once somebody knows that it's fake, the confidence is no longer perceived by the other party that you were trying to get in the first place, and it's all a sham. My point being, to me, it is far more impressive, sexy, interesting, engaging, enrapturing to see somebody truly embracing who and what they are. No filters, none whatsoever, ever. And, and just you being confident in that, in being you. That's that certainty that I'm going to respond to far better, because I got to tell you, and I don't care, people can do whatever the fuck they want. But when I see filters in a picture, I don't get enraged, but I do get very annoyed when I see that, because it's like, oh, that's not you. Like, let me see you. I need something real, because everything else online's fucking fake. Lily Jean, right? I can't do it. And so it just drives me up the wall. The last thing we need is more, falsehood. That's the last thing we need right now.
Yeah, and especially for women, they don't need more of this like oppressive belief that you have to be perfect in every photo at every moment. That's not true at all. I mean, you are beautiful the way you are.
And yeah, exactly. And they can say to me, it's like, yeah, but if I don't, I'm not going to get that guy. No, you don't need that guy. You say you need the guy. No, you don't need the filter, because you don't need the guy. Fuck him.
Well, it's also ridiculous to think that a filter is going to make the difference between you getting to date this guy or not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't do that on your personality alone, then you're not going to do it with a filter.
Yeah, but you see, according to this other Brian, beer is the foundation of civilization. Beer goggles, civilization only exists because of beer goggles, and that is the original filter. No. We haven't changed a bit. We haven't evolved for anything. Are you kidding me? We just changed the Instagram. We just changed beer to Instagram filters. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I have some serious doubts about that, but beer goggles are a real thing. I mean, that explains a few of my previous relationships, that's for sure.
Ooh, wow. Wow, there's some truth. I just, this bothers me. And folks, now more than ever, and I know you want to social distance, you want to do this, and I get it. But for fuck's sake, go talk to real people, even if it's 6 feet away, that's better than the 6,000 miles or whatever the hell that, you're experiencing online. It is not worth it in the end. And I'm going to lay out a prediction. 30, 40 years from now, maybe even sooner, there is going to be not nomophobia. There's going to be some kind of psychological condition prescribed. That is the realization that you spent the bulk of your life in front of a fucking keyboard, and that you spent the bulk of your life interacting online and you can't remember any of it. It's all ephemeral. It's all dust in the wind, and you have no real memories of anything.
And what do you have to show for it? I mean,
nothing.
Your online life, I guess, is a monument to your existence, but can you really feel satisfied about that?
What kind of existence is that? I mean, what, you're like an epic tweeter? What's that compared to Chuck Yeager, or Linus Pauling, or are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Like, I am a digital influencer. So, and you did what,
Yeah, and, to be fair, there are some digital influencers that I've come across that I feel like are genuinely doing good work, and that they are encouraging people to believe in themselves and to expect more for themselves, or they're teaching them real skills. And that's great. But I'm assuming that you're talking about the influencers that are just selling a lifestyle.
Yeah. And that bothers me too, because it's people taking pictures of them, like selfies. And I mean, and it's okay if you want to, take pictures of yourself when you go somewhere or whatever, that makes and to have it for your memories or whatever. I mean, fuck, on both of our smartphones, I mean, we have pictures of each other, different pictures of each other holding each other while we were in Geneva, you know? It's a nice memory, but it's one that we have and that we can tell stories to each other when we lived together, right? And this is kind of the other problem is that, no, you have a bunch of people who are taking selfies where, I don't know, they're in San Paulo or someplace, and it's like, oh, you know, beautiful day in San Paulo or whatever. It's like, no, don't show me that. I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words, sure, but I want the 1,000 words. I want the story from you. The picture, the selfie of you somewhere, like somehow you're something because you're in some place that begins with an S and P, I don't know, doesn't do anything for me. I don't feel connected to you, and I'm not impressed, and it doesn't mean anything. You know, tell me a story of what's going on for you. And I don't know. It just all feels disgustingly shallow. I'm not laying out anything necessarily new with some of this. Some of this is stuff that lots of people have realized, but no one's stopping. They just keep doing it.
Yeah, apparently it's not an expensive proposition.
Well, that's part of the reason they keep doing it, you know? But well, we're not going to solve this. Other than, please, folks, just fucking be real and go ahead. It's okay. Be real. Take it from an ugly motherfucker like me, okay? Be real online. It's all right. And go and live and talk to real people, you know? In fact,
I still think you're the sexiest man alive.
Well, thank you.
Maybe it has something to do with your confidence.
I'd love to see people, and I know people have, like, there have been comedy skits done around this. I'd love to see people, you know, go through their social media feed and just like talk to somebody, like look at them in the eye, you know, you can't really look them at the eye when you're reading the screen, but like read your tweet when you're talking to a person and just pay attention to how stupid you feel. You know, when you read off that really, you know, that dank tweet or that dope tweet or that spicy take or whatever the fuck it is, you know, say that to someone's face and you're just going to feel like a fucking moron. And boy, I wish more people would do that. What do you got?
Oh, I don't know. You're taking this in a direction I didn't expect.
Yeah, I didn't either. And I think that means I got to wrap it up. So do you have any final thoughts? All I'm speaking about is there's no reality online. There's none.
No, the only reality is face to face, person to person, you know, being part of the real world, being part of building it. Yeah.
I mean, exactly. And there's no truth online either. In fact, to prove my point, when you want to find something out, what does the average person do today?
They Google it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I didn't even
It's a verb.
Yes.
Googling is a verb
Yes.
when it should be it's a name of
right.
a site.
Yes. You go to Google it to find the truth. Well, here's the official statement. We covered this years ago on Sovereign Tech. Here's the official statement from a Google VP, okay, or a Google exec. Google is not a truth engine. Bam, bam, mic drop. You know, like really drop the fucking mic and then drop the fucking smartphone. Drop it all. Because there's no truth. Not there. You know, I mean, like maybe in one of the results, like search results that came up, but good luck finding it because it's probably not on page one.
Did we get that encyclopedia set yet?
Yeah, I know, right? Where's that world book? Oh, fuck. Anyway, you know, maybe we can kind of flip this. Let's take a break and we can flip this on, on its head here. We can turn this right around to, okay, but how do you be real? Maybe let's get into that.
Positive spin on this
Positive spin. I like the sound of that. All right, we'll be right back with more Sovereign Tech. Hello, Sovereignty. As you know, Sovereign Tech proudly no longer puts content behind a paywall and makes thousands of hours and episodes available to you totally for free. But if you feel that stirring in your cockles or that special feeling in your heart, I beseech you, nay, I implore you to help the show out by donating. Frequenting our sponsors is key, but donations from listeners like you has always made this show go round and round. You can go to sovereigntech.com to set up an automatic monthly donation, Or you can donate via the Bitcoin address in the show notes. And now you can even donate with the Cash app at cash.app and use the money tag Sovryn Tech. So many ways to help out the show, and I'm honored by all of it, allowing us to build and be the future. Now, let's get back to the show.
Issues of privacy, security, and social engineering. It's Hacksec.
So I'm putting this under Hacksec, even though doesn't really have to do with hacking and security in any way. But it was something on Telegram that just a couple of days ago. And in an upcoming episode, we're going to have a very large conversation around Telegram because of what's happening between Apple and Telegram. That is a real problem. Beyond what we've talked about in the past on Sovryn Tech around the issues of the Apple tax and other things. Pavel Durvov, who is the CEO of Telegram, who is at least a multimillionaire, at least. He started VK, which is like the Facebook of Russia, or Facebook of the East, and he left it after the government tried to take it over. I mean, Pavel Durvov is he's an anarchist. He's a noted anarchist, just like Moxie Marlinspike, who's the head of Signal. Now, one of the things I got to admit I really like about Pavel Durov, and I've been complimentary towards him over the many years on Sovryn Tech, is I feel like he really, like, I don't think you can find a more engaged CEO in any of these, other than maybe Moxie Marlinspike would be in that realm. But, he's in charge of a app that has hundreds of millions of users, very popular around the world, growing in popularity every day, largely because of a lot of the horseshit that's going on in the world. Not a surprise. But he always shares kind of what, his secrets, or what, not his secrets, but he shares what he's doing, what he's experimenting with over the years. And he's around my age. He's 36 now. I think he just celebrated a birthday, which happy birthday to him. I'm 39, so we're around there, and he'll share how he was just eating fish one month and that's all that he was eating. He'll just share all of these interesting little insights, way more than you ever get from a Zuckerberg or a Bezos or anybody like that. You never hear from them what they do, what's their regiment, or what's their diet plan and all this other stuff. And really, you never ever hear this stuff from these guys, and you never hear how much TRT they're using or anything. Excuse me. So, but Pavel Durov, I feel like he's more open than a lot of these other people. And he did a post the other day, and I read it to you. We were reading it together over breakfast, because I got to admit, I was pretty impressed by it. And it's a bit of a birthday message. He's kind of sharing his wisdom, and I think you'll see why it's relevant to what we've been talking about previously in this episode. And we'll share our insights on it. So you want to get into it, Ellen?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I'm reading, this is from October 10th, and he has what's called Durvov's channel, where he, makes various announcements. If you have Telegram, I think you should absolutely be subscribed to Durvov's channel on Telegram and see his messages, because some of them, are really scathing stuff against a lot of the tech giants. He's certainly made statements that fall right in line with a lot of things we've talked about on Sovryn Tech. But anyway, this I thought was really interesting. So from October 10th, from Durvov's channel here, here we go. As I'm turning 36, some people ask how I managed to look younger than my age. I've asked the same question of many people who age well, from Jared Leto to, I hate Jared Leto. What do you think of Jared Leto?
Well, I know you hate him, and that's enough for me.
All right, good. I like that. Anyway, from Jared Leto to a random fitness trainer who looks like 25 at 50. Here's what all of these young-looking individuals do and don't. Number one. So we're going to go down this list, okay, of what, he claims, and he apparently does all this as well, but what he claims are the keys to a healthy lifestyle, how to stay looking young. We'll go with number one. Avoid alcohol. Wow. I mean, you're basically, you are taking the bedrock of civilization and just tossing it out there. No. So I can't get over that. I just
really
think that's so
exaggerating.
That's just such a, well, anyway, whatever. Yes. I'll read what he says because he actually gives a little paragraph on it. There may be some rare exceptions, but in general, alcohol, as well as other addictive substances, makes people less healthy and visually older. Ellen, are you willing to share your age?
Yeah, sure. I think I already have. You ask me that almost every time I'm on.
Well, you're only as good as your last episode. Now, I mean you, I mean me. So
okay.
Go for it.
Well, I'm 26 years old.
Yeah. Okay. So you are talking as somebody in your 20s. All right. And avoid alcohol. How do you feel about this bit of recommendation?
Well, he also said other addictive substances.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I started smoking cigarettes when I was 15 years old.
Right.
I didn't quit till after I turned 20. So this is already 5 years that I was not following this advice, and yes. I wish I had.
Really? Okay, so
yeah.
So it sounds like you're agreeing here.
Yeah, well, also, I drank alcohol from, like, the age of 18 until, like, 23 years old.
Okay.
So, there's another 5 years. Anyway, I definitely think that this is advice that I should have listened to when I was younger. I had reasons for getting into these addictive substances.
Sure.
Not that they were good reasons or valid or healthy.
Right.
But, well, maybe they were valid, but they were not healthy.
Yeah.
And at the time, I just didn't care. Because I was young. I was the fountain of youth,
Sure.
18 years old, drinking, smoking, living life to the best.
Among many other things. And
yeah. Well,
you have experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was always left feeling terrible after using these substances. And, there came a day when I realized, like, I'm just not going to be able to feel my best. I'm not going to be able to give my all to exercise. I'm not going to be able to have as much lung capacity as I want. I'm not going to have a healthy gut biome if I keep behaving this way. I'm always going to have headaches and nausea and wake up feeling like I just didn't get any sleep.
Right.
So, it really was a health-based decision for me to get away from these things and to, I wanted to feel healthy every day. I wanted to wake up feeling refreshed.
Yeah.
And that's really what inspired me ultimately to stop doing this stuff. So obviously I agree completely. And I think he's right. Avoid alcohol. Even for the simple reasons of, like, it dehydrates you. And, it also can, like, affect other functions in your body that you might not even think that it could. I mean, you've stated that you don't drink because you don't want to have problems getting erections or whatever.
Yeah. Don't want whiskey dick here, folks. Yep.
Yeah, but there's also, like, a clarity of mind that you can't have if you've been drinking the night before. Or even if you are drunk currently, like, alcohol can be fun. It can be a great lubricant, social lubricant.
Sure.
At parties. But it also increases your risk of cancer. And nobody wants to think about that because that's like 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
But once you realize that that's the reality, that you're actually, like, making yourself vulnerable, not just now, but also in the future, like, that is a shocking realization that really, I think, can inspire you to make that dramatic change.
Yeah, most people don't think about the long game, and that's ultimately all these points. There's 7 points here that Pavel's going to bring up. That's ultimately what he's talking about, the long game, and longevity and living for, as long as you possibly can. And, I mean, I have to admit, I'm so ridiculously proud and impressed. I mean, people can choose to live however they want to live. I'm not going to stop them. You do what you want, and I'm not going to say what's better and what's, not, or I'm not necessarily going to go down that road. Okay. There's some people who don't care if they look younger when they're 50, right? They just don't care.
Well, you kind of have to accept what happens as you age.
Sure.
Everything
Well,
starts to sink.
I mean, what people would consider the pinnacle of health. Of course, people that are in the industry know that it doesn't necessarily mean the pinnacle of health. But example, greatest bodybuilder of all time, Ronnie Coleman. Okay. Big fan. I'm a big fan of Ronnie Coleman. Wear his shoes. I mean, I wear wear Ronnie Coleman shoes. He knew now. So he was Mr. Olympia, 7 times. I mean, but he knew what he was doing to his body to keep it that level was destroying his body, and that he was going to pay a price. And now, I mean, for years, the guy's barely been able to walk.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like he's had multiple back surgeries. He's paid the price. He knew what he was getting into. Did he do what he wanted to and achieve what he wanted to in life? How am I supposed to tell him, boy, man, if you just did this, that would have been better? He achieved what he wanted to achieve in life, And so it's tough to say what's better and what's not, right? Better can be a very subjective thing for a lot of people. And I want to bring that up as we talk about this. But if your goal is to live a long time and be healthy, you might want to pay attention to these things. And I just want to bring up that how wildly impressed and proud I am, because I've known you for years.
Yeah. You knew me even before I quit all those things.
Yes. And I remember when you stopped them, and I was and you were cold turkey. And I was just like, wow, you just pulled that off. Like you just did that. And it was remarkable to me. I mean, just mind blowing that, because I don't want to say you identified with a lot of that stuff necessarily, but.
Well, in a sense, actually, that wouldn't be totally unfair to say, because a lot of people that I spent my time around also drank alcohol, also smoked cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
It took an incredible force of willpower for me to say no, even when those people were doing it. And eventually I had to just leave those people behind in order to escape that lifestyle. But yeah, it really was a challenge. It was something that I did identify with at one point, but I decided I didn't want to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's amazing. And well, anyway, we can move on from that, but avoid alcohol. Absolutely. And I'm not saying I necessarily look young. The only thing I can say for myself as far as this goes, because other than when I was in the military, I never drank. So I only have about, I'll say around 2 years or so where I ever touched alcohol. Otherwise, the entire rest of my life, and I'm 39, never touched it.
Yeah. And you look young.
Well, I don't necessarily think I look young, but here's the rub, is that I don't really look any different than I look the same now. So I feel like when I went to the first time I ever went to a strip club, I was 16 years old. You can't go into a strip club at 16. The first time I ever bought alcohol for my friends, I didn't drink it, that I ever bought it for them, I was 15. I've always looked older. Okay. And I've been balding for a very long time, but here's the rub, is that I look the same. If you look at pictures of me when I'm 20, I look the same I do then as I do now. So while I've always looked older, I also haven't aged, like in that time frame. If that's any kind of evidence to what he's saying, there it is, I certainly haven't ended up looking any worse. So there we go.
Well, I think it's also really important to point out, people who are drinking alcohol now, they can do it because they're young, or maybe they're not even that young, but it always does catch up to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something to consider, is that it will come back to haunt you.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you, so the thing that did, I think, make me always look older. And I mean, I've gotten comments my whole life about how I've always looked older. Again, I'm glad I haven't aged otherwise, but, it speaks to number 2. Number 2 is sleep a lot. My lack of sleep is what I think, made me look prematurely older. So this is, I think, is absolutely the truth. Eventually I learned to fucking sleep, but anyway, let me read it here. Sleep is when your body repairs itself. You can't borrow it back, or you can't borrow it. Lack of sleep during the week can't be compensated with oversleeping on the weekend. Absolutely true. No argument from me on the sleep thing. What do you say, Ellen?
Yeah, I'm a strong proponent of getting, 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. I believe that is so incredibly important for peak health.
Yeah.
There's just an overwhelming amount of evidence to prove that. And you can even feel it, in your own life. If you don't get enough sleep, you're just not going to have like memory, access to, mental clarity,
right.
ability to perform as best you could.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of sleeping problems in my life too. And it's really horrible. Like it's almost like your IQ degrades the less you sleep.
Yeah. Oh, no, we know this now, that lack of sleep, your brain starts eating itself, basically. It's terrifying, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so incredibly important. I mean, it's like where you spend a third of your life is in bed.
Yeah.
And for good reason, too. Your brain is incredibly active while you're sleeping.
Right.
Just in a different way than when you're awake. And what he's saying is totally true. Like, that's when your body rebuilds itself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything to add to that. I think you're totally right. And I think he's right on with that one. So we're 2 for 2. Let's go to number 3. Do not overeat. Excessive weight makes people look older and correlates with dozens of illnesses. Typically, I eat twice a day within a 6-hour window or once a day, no snacking. Eating 3+ times a day is just he puts it in parentheses, bad habit. This is one I'll speak to because I've done intermittent fasting and all that. Look, that just doesn't work for everybody. And it really doesn't. And this is one of those cases where I get it. Don't overeat. That's a great overall abstract notion.
Yeah. Know your limits.
Right.
With food.
But like the idea that, you shouldn't eat 3 or 3+ times a day. No, if you are like, into, like the aforementioned bodybuilding, like say Ronnie Coleman or something. And I don't mean like getting to like the levels that Ronnie Coleman did, like those elite levels, but just if you're into a certain degree of fitness and you enjoy a certain degree of size, no, you're going to eat like 3 to 6 times a day. And it's what your body fucking needs. It's not, and I'm not knocking Pavel Durvov. I think in general, this might not be bad advice. But intermittent fasting, I mean, like that, it works for some, it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, it wouldn't even work for me. For people like me who have, periods throughout the day where your blood sugar gets very low.
Right.
Maybe there's something where like you have high insulin levels or something, but I need to eat like at least 3 times a day. Right. With snacks between.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean I'm eating large meals particularly. Like sometimes we have a huge dinner, but I don't feel like I'm ever overeating. Right. And I feel like if you really understand it, so this is something I'm really big on. And I've told you this before, like chewing your food a lot. It slows you down while you're eating. It allows you to extract more nutrition from what you're eating, but it also allows you to maybe subconsciously kind of keep track of how much you've eaten and how full you are. Right. And part of that is just eating more slowly. But that is so important to like paying attention to your body and knowing that you've had enough to eat. I think a lot of people, they eat fast. They eat fast food fast. And they're not eating healthy food. And a lot of food, there's science that goes into that makes you want to eat more of it.
Absolutely.
And maybe it even turns off your stomach's ability to sense how full you are. So like these are just things that are really important to pay attention to. Whether or not you're doing intermittent fasting or you're eating 3 or 4 meals a day or whatever. But I agree, not everyone eats the same. Not everyone can, because we all have different physiology. Right. We all respond to food differently. So some people can get away with only eating once a day, but some people, they would, pass out or be really tired throughout the day if they tried that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your diet is, and when I say diet, I just mean like what you normally eat, not like a diet, your diet is very, like you say, very personalized, but I mean, really that's it. Like it's something that is very goals based, I think. What are you trying to achieve? with your body or with your day or whatever, and your diet should reflect that. So, and there's no one size fits all rule for that. So that's kind of the point here. But overall, I get where he's coming from. And again, the abstract notion, don't overeat. Yeah. You don't want to walk around feeling full. Who loves it? Who likes that feeling? Well, I know, I think there are people who do, but I don't.
Yeah. And I feel like he's also maybe touching on obesity.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying like excess weight doesn't look good, and like it's true, there are plenty of health risks associated with obesity, but that's a totally different conversation. It's much bigger than I think we want to have around it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but anyway, a good abstract point for him to bring up. Number 4, exercise. Moderate but regular exercise makes people look healthier and live longer. Personally, I don't do much cardio. I'd rather walk /cycle /swim in the open air, and prefer moderate weights. I think exercise is important. Absolutely. In our sedentary lifestyles that we have, so many of us have today, for varying reasons, more so than ever, perhaps. Exercise is a great thing. And I'm the same way. I'm not super big on cardio, but, I'm also not into moderate weights. I'm into very, very heavy weights. But that's good advice. What do you say to number 4?
Yeah, no, I agree. Exercise is awesome. And everyone has their own personalized form of exercise again. But I think it even, not just that it gives you like the muscle mass or maybe like the heart efficiency that can help keep you young and energetic, but even just having that energy of someone who does work out, who is fit, who's like capable and doesn't feel weighed down and tired because they don't work out.
Yeah.
It just gives you like an extra like energetic presence.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we can get into a bigger subject around, exercise. Again, exercise is something else that's not one size fits all. Everybody has different goals. Like I was really another thing I was impressed with you, Ellen, actually just recently, the past couple weeks, you said, I'm not going to go up in weights anymore because I like, because we lift weights together.
Yeah, it was just one specific exercise.
Yeah.
I was saying that.
Right. But your point is like, no, I like the size of, you like where your arms were at. And
I'd rather perfect form instead of just forcing my muscles to move more mass.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that a lot of people just don't get. It's like the overeating. Well, don't overtrain either. Overtraining is a specific thing. But my point is that have an idea of where you want to go, what you want to look like, and what your fitness goals are. And, your diet's going to speak to that. And also your exercise regimen will as well. But you got to know what your goals are. You have to know them. So I was really impressed when you said that. I was like,
thank you.
I was like, yeah, there you go. Like you got where you wanted to be. And now you're just going to, hone down. Right. Or however you want to talk about it.
There's still a further goal in that even though I'm not moving up in weights, I still want to refine the movement. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So now number 5, this is one that I don't think needs much explanation and doesn't need much extrapolation. Limit stress. There are mental habits that help. It helps to believe that everything that happens is for the better. Stoic techniques such as negative visualization and generally not giving a shit also work. Living close to nature makes all of the above easier. I bristle at the word stoic, but I get what he means. And we all know how bad stress is for us. I mean, I don't think that's something that needs a lot of extrapolation. The idea of living closer to nature makes everything easier and allows for a less stressful life. Absolutely. I agree with that. Ellen, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree with him. Obviously, stress is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think when he says Stoic techniques such as negative visualization, that's actually more referencing like original Stoic work,
right,
not the modern reincarnation of what people think Stoic means. But it really does help to manage expectations and to help you be grateful for what you have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's beneficial. I think it's a great thing for him to recommend. All of that is true. And yeah, stress is really dangerous. I actually just started taking a new supplement, Holy Basil.
Holy Basil.
Because I want to help manage and adapt to my stress instead of like crashing in and out of it.
Yeah, no, this stuff's amazing. I mean, like you cracked it open this morning and angels started singing like as soon as you popped the top on it. And then I like later when you went off to class, I popped the top on it just to see, and it happened again. And I was a little worried that
there were like angels trapped in there.
Well, I mean, just they sing every time that it opens. And I don't know. I was kind of like, I was starting to feel a little singed on my skin, I don't deal well touching the elements of heaven, but so anyway.
Well, anyway, I think it's also great that he recommends dealing with it psychologically and mentally, not just taking supplements or doing these lifestyle changes, but like really thinking about what it is that's stressing you out and facing it and coming to terms with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think those are really like elite level suggestions.
Yeah. So I'd say we're 5 for 5.
Yeah.
In agreement overall. Number 6, let's go to this. Do not eat meat.
Oh.
Ouch. Eating seafood and wild caught fish is fine, but farmed red meat is something most people who look younger than their age avoid. I suspect the unhealthy nature of farmed meat has to do with the way livestock is raised and killed, growth hormones, fodder, etc.
Another one where he's totally on point.
Well, there you go. So you agree with this?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's great that he points out, modern methods of raising cattle and slaughtering them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anybody who knows about like prion disease knows that the main source for humans is from beef.
Right.
Which is really terrifying. But yeah, there's all sorts of research linked to how red meat can increase your chances of like cancer, coronary heart disease, all sorts of stuff. And obviously I'm a vegetarian. I agree with them.
Yeah.
Like,
same.
Well,
yeah.
Adaptive vegetarian. Like sometimes we do eat fish.
Yes. Yeah. Just like he talked, but yeah.
Yeah. And it's not something that I really feel like morally great about eating, but it is a really healthful and beneficial addition to a vegetarian diet because, it's an easy way to get high nutrition density in food. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I have fish oil regularly. That's a supplement I take every day. I did try flaxseed, but the part of the reason I take fish oil is there's some, I'll just say joint support that I take it for. And flaxseed oil did not give me the same results. And so in my N of 1, fish oil was, because a lot of people, people get into vegan, plant-based and so on, will say, well, get your omega-3s from flaxseed.
Right.
And I tried for a long time, and I was not seeing the benefits that I saw from fish oil.
Well, yeah, it's got different values of omegas-3 and 6s. So it's going to vary from species to species.
Precisely. I say this just to suggest that, just like the exercise and how often you eat during the day and a lot of the stuff, your diet is a very personalized thing because you are an individual and you operate different than the person next to you. So there's no one size fits all in a lot of this. There are some generalizations that can be helpful, just like I do think a generalization of plant-based for your diet is helpful. But yeah, I'm not here. I'm not going to, talk down on everybody about what exactly they're eating. But I will say, anecdotally, there is a woman who went to the church that I attended as a young man. And I found out eventually that she was like 60 years old. This whole family was like, they were all vegans. Not uncommon in Adventism. Seventh-day Adventists are really big on veganism. And for years, I thought she was like 30.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, she looked, I mean, like age-wise, youthfulness looked phenomenal. It was, and that always stuck with me. And she, at that time, attributed that to a vegan diet. And that was, that was 25 years ago, or however long ago.
Yeah.
So,
well, another thing that people don't realize is like when you cook meat at high temperatures, it creates carcinogens.
Right.
Like the fumes that you breathe in, the smells that you think is like delicious meat smells.
Yeah.
That actually contains cancer-causing compounds.
Yeah. Well.
And not all of those actually create cancer in the body. They can just wreak havoc on your DNA, your cells, your metabolism. Like meat doesn't even get digested in the human tract the same way that it does in other carnivores. It kind of lingers there for a long time.
Yeah.
Which isn't a good thing either. So anyway, he's totally right.
So 6 for 6.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to number 7. Number 7 is live alone. Let me read it. Yeah, let me read this. Surprisingly, all the young-looking, middle-aged men I spoke with lived alone for most of their lives. It may be the result of their independence from the sleeping/eating/behavioral patterns of another person, or it's just correlation, and people who are independent from unhealthy societal norms are also independent in their personal lives. We can stop at that one.
So he's not really attributing a specific reason. He's just making guesses as to why that is.
Yep, he's doing some correlation, but aware that it, correlation isn't necessarily causation, right? And yeah, I get what he's saying. And I think this is true for most people. Because most people don't find someone else in their life that is so in sync with how they live.
Yeah.
If one wanted to use a fancy term, you could say, soulmates or something, right? You don't find those kinds of people generally. The average person just doesn't. So I think to his point, that's probably largely true. On a generality, that's true. But if you do happen to find that person who is just so in sync with your lifestyle, you're both, walking the path side by side. The benefits from that, I think, far outweigh any potential benefits of living alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
And you don't even have to find a person who perfectly matches your goals.
Sure.
If you find a person that you just love, maybe you can make your goals match.
Yeah.
It is something that you can change and adapt to. When you first started living with me, you weren't a vegetarian, but you did become one.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I already, I've been a vegetarian or even a vegan in the past. It's something that I knew that I could handle very well. I know there are people who can't. So it was no problem.
When we started working out together, you lifted weights and I did cardio.
Yes.
We didn't lift weights together until
but then
later.
You morphed into lifting weights.
Right.
You changed into we're now, all right, I'm going to start picking up the big stuff.
You're my coach now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, exactly. And I don't want to say it's compromise. We just saw what worked for each other and that turned into a unified path going forward. And so, yeah, that can happen. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think what happened was we both had really well-defined goals for what we wanted out of our diet or out of our exercise or out of our sleeping habits, whatever. And because we were able to understand each other's reasoning about that, we're able to see the truth in it and adapt to it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's gotten to the point now where we literally do everything together.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We go to bed at the same time. We get up mostly at the same time. You always get up early.
Yeah.
But we eat the same foods for the most part. There's times where I'm away and you break out the freezer food, but
those burritos.
But yeah, we've learned to live the same lifestyle, and we've taken the best from each other's goals and really made them mutual goals. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so I get where he's coming from with live alone, and like I said, in general, I think that's probably true. But man, when you find that that 1 in a billion or whatever, like that's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. So
yeah,
right.
It's really wonderful. It's like being closer than friends, closer than lovers.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. So let me finish reading some of this.
Sure.
And so here we go. Interestingly, you can find scientific explanations for most of these points. Even the last one is defensible. E.g., there are multiple studies showing that sleeping alone improves the quality of sleep. I kind of could concede that point, that like a person can sleep better if they can sleep alone. Granted, you can also buy a bed big enough to where it's like two normal single beds, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. Actually, sometimes I still have trouble sleeping, and like I'll have to ask you to sleep on the floor or whatever,
which I gladly do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you tell me all the time, like if you're having trouble sleeping, just tell me to go away.
Yeah.
And that's really sweet because like I wouldn't be able to get a full night's sleep if we had to share a bed sometimes, because if I'm having trouble sleeping and you're like, twitching throughout the night or just moving or, snoring, whatever, like normal human stuff.
Yep.
It causes a real challenge for me.
Yeah.
And for some people who are heavy sleepers who sleep easily, not a problem sleeping with other people. But, there are light sleepers in the world, and even sharing a big bed doesn't really make that much of a difference because those vibrations still travel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can see his point on that. But anyway, I'll keep reading. I've been following these rules for over 10 years, with quote unquote more sleep being the most difficult due to the nature of my work. I'll agree with him on that. Getting more sleep is a challenge for me as well. But anyway, reading on, if you are twice as young as I am, so this is Pavel Durvov saying this, he's 36. If you are twice as young as I am and looking for the key takeaway, here it is. So this is what he considers to be, out of all of those, the most important thing that you can do to stay looking youthful, to be healthy, whatever.
All right, let's hear it.
Never drink alcohol.
Whoa.
I mean, and he put that in all caps, bold. He said, once you give up on alcohol, you'll stop silencing your intuition, which will tell you what is good and what is bad for you. You will figure out everything you need to know by yourself and won't depend on other people for advice.
That is some hard and fast wisdom.
Wow. Again, I'm not going to judge anybody. Okay. And we wouldn't have civilization without beer. And no, I'm sorry. All right. I'm not judging anybody, but that's powerful. I mean, what a statement for him to make. Do I disagree? No, I don't disagree. I've said many times on this show, especially recently, even like with a lot of the health concerns going on, like why people want to wear an Apple Watch to check their heart rate and do all this other stuff. And people are just getting all of these metrics to try and tell them, I guess, whether or not they're doing enough in a day or whether they're healthy or stuff like this. And my response on Sovereign Tech is almost always the same. Not even talking about the privacy concerns and the stress that creates, right? And like Durvov says, stress is a problem. Not even getting into that. My response is always the same. You can't listen to your own fucking body and know whether or not you're feeling good or you're feeling healthy or if there's a problem. There is no way that some fitness tracker could possibly tell you more than your own senses could. Not really, if you can actually listen to your body. And when I read this from him, it clicked for me. I suddenly said, I was like, is that what's going on? Like these people really can't tell what their body's doing because, it's numbed up. I mean, it's just a thought. I don't know, and I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to judge anyone, but like, it made me think about it. Like, wait, why can't people listen to their bodies to know what's going on for them? And, why do they feel like they need all this, quantifying from varying apps and all this other horse shit, or their smartphone telling them how many steps that they had in a day and all this stuff? It's like, don't you know whether or not, or why do you need to wear the Halo wristband, which tells you whether or not you had a positive customer experience based upon the tone in your voice? You don't remember what your voice sounded like a few seconds ago? Like what is going on? Well, you know what? Maybe these people fucking don't because they can't remember shit because they're, just trashed. I don't know. So, give it to me.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say that people are trash. I mean, everybody has there's a huge gradient how much people drink.
Mhm.
There's people who have a few glasses of wine on
Yes.
the weekend with their
Yes.
lover, or there's people who like have a beer or two every day when they get home from work, or
Right.
there's the actual alcoholics. So, I don't want to say that like everyone is trashed and that alcohol is causing all of these problems, but I will say that I think it's very insightful of him to point out that alcohol does inhibit your natural gut feeling, your natural sense of intuition. And I think a lot of people, the reasons that people give for why they drink, like, oh, I just want to loosen up, or I want to feel more comfortable, or I want to have more fun, like, they're really just veiled responses that are conveying something more like, there's something about themselves that is being held back, that's being suppressed, that they want to express, or, there's just something about the way that they behave that they want to change, and that's what they're using the alcohol for, or something about the way they feel that they want to change. And people have the power to change the way they feel and the way they behave, certainly without alcohol. Alcohol is just an easy way to do it.
Yes.
But it's also something that, he's right, it does overall numb your sense of right and wrong, of good decision making, of being able to hear and understand your intuition and your gut feelings. And it really does mess with your gut too, like the bacteria in there.
Oh yeah, sure, right.
Which we know that actually changes your psychology.
Absolutely.
Your brain is connected to your intestines through
Absolutely.
the vagus nerve.
Yes.
So I think he's right, and it's a subtle point, but it's one that I think is incredibly important.
I have nothing to add on that. I don't disagree. Well, there's statements I want to make, but you know what? My gut's telling me don't make them. So, anyway, I thought this was absolutely brilliant. No one has to agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. You have to recognize that he is talking about a very specific goal, that of, looking youthful and healthy into, 36 isn't exactly advanced years, but you get my point. And these are tips for how to do so. Would you say 7 for 7? Live alone is kind of a shaky one.
Yeah, I think there are ways that you could twist it to where all 7 of these are correct or make sense. Mm-hmm. Or at least I would say some of them I partially agree with, most of them completely.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a great list.
Right on.
Not that it's an imperative to live alone, but maybe his underlying point of, like having goals for yourself and following those goals, even if nobody else is there to follow them with you.
There you go. So I couldn't say it any better. So we'll leave that story at that. And, it's there for food for thought, but remember, don't overeat. Can you overeat on thought? No. Boy, that could go places. It's funny. Rob actually said this to me the other day. I don't think he'll mind that I said this. But he told me, he said, Brian, when you say like, we're not going to go down that road, or like, we don't have time to go into that, it's like, we're all dying for you to tell us what the hell you're saying.
It's true. I've been telling you this forever. I agree, Rob.
Maybe someday. And I know that's just another way of saying, we don't need to go there, but
until people ask you enough. So keep asking.
Yeah.
Send him emails.
That's what you gotta do. You know what? That's the thing, really. Like, email me. I'll get to it. I'll do whole episodes. I just released earlier today. I just released a whole episode that was based around a 1-line sentence that somebody said. And I went an hour and 20, like around that. So if you actually ask me, I'm happy to answer and I'll do it. And if you tell me, like in when you ask me, you can't say we don't go down that road, then all right, I aim to please. So we'll leave it at that. We'll be right back with just a little more Sovryn Tech, just a few minutes, and then we'll wrap this one up. Hey, baby, I know. You are tired of Gmail. You have had enough. Well, I have a solution for you. What I want you to do is you go to Fastmail, okay? It's fastmail.sovryntech.com. That's the URL you can use. You're going to get a discount with that. You are going to love this. This is email for email's sake. This company does nothing more. Just email, and they do it right. All the latest security technologies. You want to log into your account with your YubiKey? You can do that. Fastmail has your hookup. Very inexpensive plans. I want you to check it out. You go to fastmail.sovryntech.com. That'll get you the hookup, and it's an honor to have them as a part of Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
The Golden Stallion doing whatever he wants to do. The Climax.
So it is time for the climax, and we're only going to spend, this episode's already gone over 2 hours. We're only going to spend a couple minutes on this, but I want to get it out there, and maybe we'll deep dive in a future episode when you're on again, Ellen. I presented to you the glories of the Tron Duology, which might become a trilogy. In fact, with the aforementioned hated Jared Leto. We'll talk about that with Rob on TIE Fighter Renegades at some point, as we get more news about it. But we watched Tron and Tron Legacy. Tron, of course, the original film from, that'd be 1984. Tron Legacy, which came out in 2010. I guess I want to ask first, what, and again, we're only going to, I've talked about these movies before on the show. I love these movies to death. It's also a great chance to see Bruce Boxleitner again, you know, after getting to experience him as Sheridan, which we're almost done with Babylon 5. Is it the greatest show on television?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now
it's hard to say that. It's hard for me to like actually like back away from my position of like Star Trek being the greatest and to say, okay, you were right. Babylon 5 is the greatest show in television history.
Oh yeah. Even while we're in the middle of Crusade, you still know Babylon 5 is fucking awesome.
Crusade's a different story.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that at some point. But in fact, I had an epiphany while we were watching Crusade today, but that's something for another time. Anyway, Tron. Okay, so these are two movies that I have gotten a lot of heat, or a lot of shit over. Like, no, these movies suck. What are you talking about? Maybe some people like the original Tron, but Tron Legacy, they're like, oh no, that's terrible. So we're just going to take a minute here, because admittedly, I'm going for some more vindication. Tron, the first one. Give me a ranking. Give me an out of 10. 10 being like, 10 being Cleopatra. 1 being, I don't know, any given Sunday. So what do you give? What do you give Tron?
Well, I would actually say that 1 is like The Room.
Wow, you're gonna get shit for that. Anyway, go ahead.
I would say Tron's like 8, 8.5.
8.5 for the original Tron.
Yeah, it's really visually beautiful. I think the characters all work together really well in it. Very unique. Just fun to watch. Still an incredibly unique film. Yeah.
Even with Legacy, it still looks, Legacy matches, I think, the look, like it fits, but it's still not the same. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. And like there are things about Tron that I liked even better than Tron Legacy.
Okay, so then give me a ranking for Tron Legacy out of 10.
I think that one I gave a 7.
You gave it a 7?
Yes. Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you. We were talking about it over breakfast, as we do all great things.
Yes.
In the original Tron movie, there are 3 main characters, and one of them is a female, 2 of them are men, but they're all, like working together towards the same goal.
Yeah.
The female's actually like a scientist. She helped develop this laser that like turns things into digital bits. But in Tron Legacy, there's like a noticeable lack of female characters. And the only time they appear is when they're suiting up.
Yeah, when they're suiting up Flynn's son.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Sam Flynn.
One of those women turns out is like really deceptive and leads him into a trap. And another woman is there as like flashy showcase material, needs to be saved.
Olivia Wilde's character, Cora.
Yeah. And I was just really annoyed with that. I felt like there's just like blatant sexism.
Okay. So yeah. So you thought Yuri from the first movie was a better female character.
Oh, definitely.
Than Cora.
Yeah. And she at least like played a role in the film. She wasn't just like there to look at. She wasn't there to be saved.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think it's a shame we didn't get a Tron 3 shortly after Tron Legacy, because I think there could have been a very interesting and maybe somewhat more of a redeeming, like in your eyes, character arc for Cora.
Sure. If they had like, you know, I know that she's one of these special like
biodigital jazz, man.
Yeah, biodigital life forms.
Yeah.
But like it didn't really play a role at all in this movie. Like it was not important.
You didn't really get the payoff of what all that meant. And that is one of the fuzzy areas in Tron Legacy that I admit to, where I'm like, yeah, they don't really explain what he means, you know, by what Kevin Flynn means by all this. So original Tron better than Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that too many people would disagree with that. It's tough for me, and I mean this. Granted, I do have like the fact that I've grown up with these movies, and they are I grew up with the first Tron, and then to finally get a sequel and a faithful one at that, 25 years later is unheard of. I mean that's just an amazing thing. So it's tough for me to not just give them both a 10 out of 10.
Right.
And I mean that.
Well, I mean, Tron Legacy really, it took the visually stunning up a notch. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful.
And it was the first film. I mean, Tron is largely credited. It's not the first film to use CGI. I think Young Sherlock Holmes is the first movie to technically do it, but most people credit Tron or like Last Starfighter with like the first real, judicious use of CGI in a film. So it was groundbreaking at the time. And the de-aging process that was done on Jeff Bridges for Tron Legacy was also largely the first time that was ever really tried. So both movies are technical marvels and groundbreaking in that way, or in their respective ways. So they deserve high marks in the history of cinema just for those reasons alone. But those are some pretty high scores you're giving these movies. I mean, I think most people want to give Tron Legacy like a 4. And right. I cannot grasp. I don't want to, again, we only wanted to spend a couple minutes on this because I could really deep dive. Like, people do not understand the allegory and the metaphor that's happening in Tron Legacy. It is explosive. It's huge. All I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to give you two bits, and all I'm going to say is you have the Holy Trinity of God the Father, God the Son, and the Sophia in Tron Legacy. Okay, and you should know exactly what I'm referencing when I say that. You know, the users, the creators, the gods, and you like the whole film is basically the War of Heaven, and it's just so well done. And that's all I'm going to say. I mean, I can prove that point, the
ending scene alone, I think, really proves that.
Yes. But there's so much in it. There's so many hints to that, and it's just so fucking well done. So to be fair, I'm going to give Tron, the original Tron, I'm going to give that a 9.5. Okay.
Nice.
And then I'm going to give Legacy a 9. I do still like the original Tron more than I like Tron Legacy, but Tron Legacy is just an amazing film and works on so many levels that most people just, I think they just don't get it. Like they don't understand. It's similar to like when we watch Zardoz. I had a revelation when we last, blah, blah, blah. It's late, folks. When we watched Zardoz, I finally got it. It finally clicked. I had to watch it 5 times, but it finally fucking clicked as to what that movie is really about. And once you know what it's about, it becomes interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
When you realize it's all like a Nietzschean play. But anyway, so, and I think Tron Legacy, if the action and everything going on alone doesn't do it for you, and the visuals and the tremendous score, I mean, the soundtrack for Tron Legacy, I mean, tell me.
It was good. It was great.
Daft Punk was amazing. Yeah, with that. I mean,
yeah, it fits so perfectly into that film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if everything on the surface doesn't work with Legacy, when you dig beneath that surface, there's a ton there, and it's not like, oh, you can read anything into it. No. It's obvious what they were saying, what they were doing. So anyway, there you go. Ellen says, go watch these fucking movies. Is that what you're saying?
I would recommend. They're on the list. Yes.
All right, good enough for me. So anything you want to add in?
No, I think that about does it, unless you want to keep talking about this for another half hour.
We could go all night long, baby. But I think we'll go all night long doing something else. So maybe sleeping.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's typically what we do all night long.
Yeah, right, of course. Yeah, so we'll wrap this one up. This episode of Sovryn Tech. And of course, go to sovereigntech.com. I've lost count of how many thousands of hours of content is available there for you to enjoy, and I assure you it's largely evergreen, so go for it. And you can hear plenty more episodes with Ellen on them. We will wrap this one up. Ellen, thank you as always for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, loads of fun all the time. So we will wrap it up. I will see all of you on the other side.
Thank you for listening to Sovryn Tech, an Osiris One production. Now go out there and make some trouble.